Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Southwest Alliance Technical Assistance Center webinar on 501c3, the Self-Advocate's Guide to Filing for Nonprofits. Today is October 26, 2016. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Technical Assistance Center project. We are in a third year, and the goal of the project is to share information from state to state about self-advocacy, create video blogs about disability issues, lead webinars about strengthening self-advocacy organizations, and work on sustainability and recruiting youth leaders.
Today's presenters are myself, John Britton, and George Garcia. The purposes of today's webinar are: what is a nonprofit or 501c3? Where do you need to file? What do you need to prepare? And where to file with local, state, and federal agencies.
Okay, so as John introduced me, my name is George Garcia and I'm with SWI. And today we're going to be talking about what is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Now, you can have a nonprofit organization. Anybody can create one, and we can talk about what exactly that means, but to be called a 501c3 nonprofit organization, it's a classification or a designation by the IRS that's given to you after you fill out some paperwork, and it just means that you don't have to pay taxes or federal taxes to the government for any of the money that you make, whether it's from donations or through grant writing. And so you can receive donations, and you can also apply for grants. A lot of federal grants or even state grants go to only 501c3 organizations, and they require you to show that you are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So it really does open you up to, getting funding and being part of and getting, donations that people can then claim as on their taxes. Now, there are some rules that you have to follow if you do become a 501c3 nonprofit. One of those rules is that you can't influence political campaigns or legislation. So for instance, you can't do what's called lobbying. You can't go out there and say, we are in favor of this person for president or this person for Senate. You can't go and say that we support a certain law. However, you can go and do what's called education. And you can, for instance, go speak with senators or with legislatures and say, here are the important issues that affect the people we work with, that our nonprofit works with. So for instance, if you're a nonprofit organization that works with people with disabilities, or people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and there is certain laws or certain issues that are important to that community you work with, then you can go and speak with your representatives and let them know what's important to you and your people that you work with. What's important to people with disabilities, and that's called education, because you're letting them know, and that's perfectly legal, and you can do that. You also cannot be religious in the sense that you can't say that one organized or one religion is more important than others, because then that also takes you away from the 501c3 organization. You can, be a church or be a religious group, but you can't favor one religion over another. So, okay. So if you want to become a 501c3 nonprofit organization, the first thing you need to do is you need to file what's called your Articles of Incorporation. And that's done with your state corporation commission. And you do that at the state level, and you file as a nonprofit organization. Now, to receive to do your Articles of Incorporation, it'll cost about $40 to $50. At least that's what it costs in the state of Arizona. And there you have to choose the name of your organization. So you have to pick something that is not chosen by any other group. And they all have computers there in the list. And you can tell them the name and they'll go, oh, that's available, or maybe that's not available. There are certain rules about names. For instance, you can't have, like, for instance, the word, anything that has to do with like government or agency or something like that, because those are designated more for like state agencies or federal government agencies. And you can't have the word, like, for instance, bank, unless that, but those are other rules and you don't have to really worry about that. Another thing that you need to have is who's going to be the directors of your organization, of your corporation. And you write on there on the Articles of Incorporation, it's going to ask you to list who's going to be the directors of this organization. And of course, you can change directors in the future, but in the beginning, they want you to include who are those people that are going to be your directors. It doesn't necessarily. Once you get your Articles of Incorporation accepted and you become what's called a corporation under the State Corporation Commission, you have to apply for what's called your Federal Employer Identification Number, also known as an EIN. Think about it as a Social Security number for your organization. Just like you have a Social Security number, I have a Social Security number. Well, this helps the IRS identify your organization. And so when you file tax records with the IRS, you include your EIN number. And this is very important to have. Your organization needs to have an EIN number. And you file for that EIN number after you get your Articles of Incorporation, because they need to make sure that you're an organization that's already been accepted by your State Corporation Commission. So we have a poll question for the group, and here's the question.
The first poll question is, does your self-advocacy group or organization have bylaws? Please answer yes or no.
No. Okay. So bylaws are, so does your organization or your self-advocacy group have any bylaws? And right now we have no. You want to go to the next one? Now, what are bylaws? And then we'll get into why they are important. Bylaws are important because they set the rules of your organization in order to control its own actions. Think about it as the rules of how your organization are going to work. You know, how your self-advocacy group is going to be managed. What are the rules of the organization? These are known as bylaws. Now, what do you include when you write bylaws? And you can find a lot of examples online. You can just, look up on the internet bylaws and you can see a lot of templates, but you can make them more specific to your organization. Bylaws usually have things like, for instance, what's the purpose or the mission of your group or your organization? Why are you being formed? What are you trying to accomplish? You have to have a description of the membership. Who's going to be part of the groups? You have to have, for instance, election of directors or officers into your organization. How is that going to be managed? How often do you have elections? How long are their periods going to be in office as officers? These are all rules that you have to include. What are the requirements for meetings? How often do you have meetings? How do you make sure that you have what's called a quorum, or at least the minimum people that have to be present to make it an official meeting? The description of what are the duties of everybody that's part of the organization or the officers of the organization. These rules are called bylaws, and they're very important because when you go on and file for...
Hi, this is Diana.
Hi, Diana.
Hello.
Hi, Diana. We're right now talking about bylaws in your organization, and we're going to be talking about how those things are important, because when you become a nonprofit or a 501c3 nonprofit, bylaws are important. Now, certain state corporation commissions require you to include bylaws and others don't. But the federal government will require you to include your bylaws when you apply for your 501c3 status so that you don't get taxes. So it's important to have these written when you create your organization. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of examples online that you can find on how to write bylaws, and they'll give you a good ideas. And as we mentioned in the bylaws, you do have to have what's called your board of directors. Now, these people are the ones who are legally responsible for the organization. They, you would have, they're the ones that will be making decisions for the organization. It's important to choose a board of directors that not only believe in what you're doing,
Diana, is it possible for you to mute your phone?
Oh, hold on. Let me see. Hold on. How do I mute my phone? Oh.
So your board of directors are the ones that are going to be responsible for your organization. They're also going to be the ones that are going to be helping you guys make the decisions on how to run the organization, or the direction of that organization. What's going to be the mission of that organization or its purpose. So it's important to choose people who believe in what you believe in, or your purpose or your mission.
phones and stuff.
And it's also important to choose people who have, the necessary skills to help run, help you guys organize and run this organization as a nonprofit. So, like for instance, in our organization at SWI, we have people that are, for instance, lawyers or directors of other groups.
I don't
They've helped us out a lot.
I don't know how to do it.
If you're on the phone, can you press there might be a mute button on your phone, or do you press pound 6?
Okay, hold on. Is that better?
No.
Well, that's okay. We'll just, if you have any questions, let me know.
My phone's not working, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So the last one,
Pound 6, I think, is supposed to be.
No, only if they put their key.
yeah, my phone's not working.
Are you somewhere where you can be in a room by yourself, or are you driving or something?
We're driving.
Can you see if your friends can keep it down a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. As I was saying earlier, it's important to choose people.
Okay.
They can help you organize your group and help you run your organization as a nonprofit. And here at SWI, where I work, our board of directors has a lot of people that are, for instance, lawyers or directors of other organizations, and they've really helped us get together and make sure that our organization is running properly and meeting all its requirements. So now we have another poll question for you, and you guys can answer it online if you're able to. If not, that's okay. But here's the next poll question.
The second poll question is, does your self-advocacy group or organization keep written records of what is going on in your group or organization? Please answer yes or no.
So the question was, does your self-advocacy group or organization keep written records of what's going on in your group or organization? And some of you guys have answered yes, you guys do. And that's very important. So let's go on. So it's very important to keep track of all your records. What are some of the records that you're going to have to be keeping? Some of the things that you'll be needing is, for instance, meeting minutes. You have to have meeting minutes or also just notes of what was said at your board of directors meetings. Those are very important because the meeting minutes or the notes become the official record of the meeting. If it's in the meeting notes, then it's official. If it's not, then it's not official. If you guys have something to vote on, you record those in your notes or your meeting minutes. That way you know what decisions were made and what was the voting record for them. You also have to keep track of your finances. You have to keep records of where money is coming from and how you're spending it. This is important because if you're an organization that's been around for a while and then you want to become a 501c3 nonprofit organization, the IRS is going to want to see your financial records. They're going to want to see how you've been making money and how you've been spending money. And that's usually for like the last 3 or 4 years. If you're a new organization, they'll want to see a budget for the next 3 to 5 years, where you can talk about how you plan to raise money, how you plan to make money, and how you plan to spend it. And that can be everything from whether you're going to spend it out in the community or if you're going to pay somebody as staff of your organization. How do you plan to pay them? How much? And just because they want to make sure that that money is being used properly and not to just make certain people rich. Teresa, do you want?
No, I'll ask a question after you're done.
Okay, so that's it.
So one of the things that helps you is that even if you're not sure if you want to become a nonprofit, but someday you might, is to keep those records. What that shows is that you're a stable organization. So even if you haven't become a nonprofit yet, what you want to do, if you're thinking that you might want to be one, is to go ahead and organize yourself as if you are one, so that people can get used to the idea of what they need to keep and what they need, how they need to do voting and all those things, like George was saying, and to go ahead and elect people like you would do it if you were a nonprofit. And we still call ourselves a board even if we're not a nonprofit, just so people can learn what it means to be a board and that they have responsibilities. And it improved our attendance at our meetings. Even though we're not a nonprofit, we want to become one. So we went ahead and set ourselves up like one, and it improved our attendance very much because people started taking the responsibility of showing up and being a board more seriously. Because what we did was we had some things that we needed to vote on, and we said, oh, if we were an official nonprofit, we would not have enough people to carry out this vote. So when things did not get done the way people wanted them to because we didn't have a quorum, then they started taking it more seriously how important it was that they be there. So things did not get done because we didn't have a quorum. People would be saying, well, I thought we were voting on the conference or whatever. And we said, well, there wasn't a quorum. You don't want 3 or 4 people making the decisions for the whole group. So the whole group started showing up.
Okay. Next. So now we get to the part where it's IRS tax exemption. So in order to become a 501c3 nonprofit, you need to file a document with the IRS that's called the 1023. Now the 1023 document is this large document that's going to require you to fill it out where you talk about your organization. What's your purpose? Who are you going to be serving, or who in the community are you going to be focusing on? You need to show your financial records. You need to show them, for instance, if you have a board, what kind of board do you have? What are your bylaws? These are all documents that you're going to have. Are you already do you have your articles of incorporation with your state? Do you have an EIN number? This is a very large document. It's usually about 50 pages long. However, if you're a small group, there is a different form called the 1023-E, and you can go online and see it, and you can file that way. But before you do that, there is a questionnaire or another form that the government's going to ask you to sign up. to see if you even qualify for the 1023 easy. So those are two different things. One of the big recommendations, though, is it would be a very good idea to hire a lawyer to help you fill out these documents, because they can be a little technical. Now, you can't just hire any lawyer. A good lawyer, you need to hire somebody that's familiar with 501c3 nonprofit organization law. And you can find that out by looking them up online. There's websites where you can look up different types of lawyers. You can even call your own state bar association, your state bar association, and they can give you good references to lawyers who will, have information, who will have experience working with nonprofits. Now, it will save you a lot of headache, and it will also save you time and money in the long run.
What question is this?
Did they have a question?
You guys have a question so far?
One of the things that we did, I helped another group that was a coalition in the past, and what they did was we went through the 1023 and divided into subcommittees and had different people work on different things, just so we could not have one person have to do all the work, because it is work, but the benefits are really nice. And we'll talk about that in a little while, why you want to go through all this work. But one of the things that we did these subcommittees, and we divided up, and we also called our other groups that were nonprofits that were friends and asked them, could we see what your bylaws look like? We think we're going to be similar to your group, but not exactly like your group, but similar. So we could see what they put down in their bylaws, for example, or how they described the purpose of your organization. That one is one that's real common for groups that are just filling out the papers to get kind of questioned about, because we have to be extremely clear that we are an education group or whatever it might be, so that they understand our purpose in the community. Nonprofits are made because they serve a community need, and we weren't clear the first time we submitted our paperwork, and it came back. And that's when we asked our friends that were nonprofits, hey, who helped you get your paperwork accepted? And that's when we hired our lawyer. We asked around, and people recommended some different lawyers, and we talked to them briefly and found out how much they would charge and raised the money separately. Some of our other organizations wanted us to be successful, and we just did like a fundraising kind of campaign and asked our other DD organizations and other provider agencies that knew that our work was going to be important, would you help us to get our paperwork accepted by helping us raise enough money to get a lawyer? And it did cost, this was 6 or 7 years ago, it cost about $3,500 for them to do our paperwork, but we had a lot of the work done for them. If they would have had to do it all, it would have been very expensive. So you want to do as much as you can for yourself, and then hire the lawyer to either look it over before you submit it, or wait till the IRS sends you questions back. Because what happens is you'll submit it, and they'll write you questions back, and that's when we hired our lawyer, is to help us strengthen our application. So That's just some ideas that might help you out.
Okay. So do we have any, hold on.
Thank you, George. Does anyone have any questions?
Do we have any questions or anything?
Sarah, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think the most important thing is that you don't get overwhelmed by it, and you divide up the work and have people work on different things, and you create the things. You give yourself about 1.5 years to do this process. Some people can do it faster because they have a lot of time, but what we had was all volunteers until we hired the lawyer. And so we all had to work patiently together and start checking off the list what we would need to do. What didn't come up for you is why do all of this work? Why do all this work? Because being a nonprofit gives you power to go after grants and money and to ask other community organizations and other people to make donations. George mentioned the donations, but what that does, if you're a nonprofit and somebody makes a donation to you, it actually helps them on their taxes too. So it is a benefit for organizations and people to donate to you then. They get a tax break for giving donations, and that would help us a lot when we're trying to do projects. Also, when you're a nonprofit, you really have to be very organized about what you want to work on and how you want to work on it. George was talking about not being out there asking for specific things on bills and things, but being an education organization, that gives you credibility. If you're a nonprofit and they know that you have information, some people, some legislators, some organizations might come to you and say, could you come and speak on a panel about the issues that are important to your group? We need to know because we only have part of the picture. You get to be acknowledged as experts in the community then. And that nonprofit status just gives you that strength that maybe you didn't have before. You might have had those relationships already, not as a nonprofit, but there's something that gives us all pride when we finally get through all this paperwork and we've been accepted. There's a really powerful thing that unites the group. It encourages membership. It gives you, like I said, credibility, and people respect you sometimes more than before. We might be respected, but when we have that nonprofit, it just shows people you are a serious organization working hard to make the community better. So that's what I wanted you to know, is that you must have that community connection and know what the community needs are for the group that you're going to be representing in your work. So it just helps you get more focus, which it helped our group really pull together some major planning, some outreach that we wanted to do, and that group was able to get some bills changed and all kinds of stuff when they became the nonprofit. It just gave them that identity that the group needed to help pull together and push on things that were important to them.
Okay.
Do you want to ask your questions again? Or just do that?
So we have a couple of upcoming webinars that'll be happening soon. The next one will be Wednesday, November 16th. It'll be 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and Colorado will be presenting. We will send out that information along with the topic as soon as we get the information from Colorado. And then the beginning of next year, New Mexico will be doing a grant writing information, and they will be splitting it, doing part 1 on January 4th, and then part 2 will be on June 7th. And then our new friends from Ohio will be choosing a topic that they'll be doing. Just wanted to remind everybody that the first face-to-face meeting will be January 9th and 10th. And if you can arrive Sunday, the 8th, the meeting will be Monday from 10 to 6, Tuesday 10 to 6. The hotel will offer breakfast each morning, and Southwest Alliance will provide lunch and dinner on Monday and Tuesday. So when you arrive on Sunday, that'll be dinner on your own. We would like to acknowledge some of these funders and supporters for this project and for this webinar today. If you have any questions, you can reach me at j.huerna@southswifamilies.org, and my phone number is 602-235-0354, extension 802. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'm sure you